Welcome everybody, good afternoon, and welcome along to this brand new season of live Microburst CPD sessions from the VMG. We're thrilled to bits to have you along. We've got half an hour, as we're calling it, a Microburst session. And we're absolutely thrilled to bits to be joined this afternoon by, he's on this side on my screen, Sid Madge. Sid is a speaker, a coach, a facilitator, a writer, a podcaster, and founder of Me Global. So, Sid, I'm going to hand over to you to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be discussing this afternoon.
Wonderful, Hannah. Thank you very much. I mean, this session really is about finding the magic that is within all of us. But then the question that sort of sits beneath that, but where is it? And the thing is that, I mean, I'll explain to you in a minute about why we started Me and, the foundations and stuff and whatever. But when we think of the human race, of which we've got 8 billion people on the planet, every single person has got their own unique blend of magic they really have, whether they've got writing skills, practice skills, whatever it is. We all have that wonderful ability to be, amazing. So quick bit of housekeeping. We are recording this session so that other people can kind of benefit. And if you can, enjoy it. I mean, this literally is a microburst session. So it's kind of like, hopefully, lots of kind of fun interactivity and some stuff to enjoy. Herman Ebbinghaus told us many, many years ago that if we take notes, stuff sticks. So I always say to people, even if it's a 10-minute session, I've always got a notebook or something where I can just sort of take some notes. And also, if you're going to kind of learn some good stuff, share that. I mean, VMG is an organization you're very good about kind of, learning and sharing and kind of growing. The more we share the good stuff, the better we are as kind of human beings. Okay, so this is something that we started many, many years ago. And basically what we do is a check-in score. So from 0 being rubbish and 10 being absolutely fantastic and flying, what are you checking in at? So let's see if we can get any scores at all. So I would check in at a 10, and I'll explain why in a minute. So Hannah, what are you checking in at?
That's a difficult question because you've set the bar pretty high there. So I feel like I ought to be somewhere up there. I would probably give it today maybe a 7.5.
Brilliant. Okay, Ruth's in a 7. Brilliant.
Yeah. So are we allowed half marks?
And it's really funny, Hannah. But when we first started doing this about 6-7 years ago, what was really interesting is that all the sessions that we run, and we literally run in preschool all the way up into universities and businesses. There was a lad, and he said to me, Sid, and his name was Ben actually. He said, Sid, today I'm a 7.2, and I just said to him, Ben, I love that. And he goes,
so specific.
And it was absolutely specific. He was like 17 years old. And he said, I'm not a 7.3 and not a 0.1, but I want to be a 0.2. And from then on, I realized that nobody is a whole number. So that's the whole kind of process. So we've got some really good numbers in here. We've got a 6, we've got an 8, we've got a 7. And the reason why I do so, I'll explain in a minute. But so that's you checking in. And it's something to bring into your life every day. Seriously, one little tip is that every morning check in. When you're waking up, just check in. Physically, mentally, spiritually, or whatever. Where am I at? Where's my energy today? Okay. Now, here's another one. What one word would you use to describe yourself? You could pick any word. You can have 2 words as long as you put a hyphen in the middle. We're allowed 2 words, which constitute one if it's hyphenated. So again, in the chat box, please just put in what one word you would use to describe yourself.
That's tricky.
Come on, Hannah.
We had this conversation just before we went live, didn't we, Sid? And I sort of confessed that my immediate thought wasn't massively positive, but then I went with curious.
Joanna, brilliant, positive, yeah. Curious is a great word. Love that word.
Yeah.
Relieved, Ruth, love that. Reliable, Gems, that's lovely. Anyone else?
A fair amount of positive.
Yeah. Organised, wonderful, birds of a feather, happy, organised, brilliant.
Nice.
Love it. Right, and if you've got any more of those words, keep them coming. And the reason why I asked you this question, so my background, so I spent 20, 30 years working in the world of marketing and branding for some of the biggest organisations in the world, for some of the biggest creative agencies in the world, and I ran some of those. And I had a great time, absolutely fantastic. Got paid a huge amount of money, which was great. Retired out of that about 10 years ago and moved up to North Wales, as you would. Anyway, I was asked by the Welsh government to go into schools to do talks about marketing and branding and all that kind of good stuff. So I prepared an hour's worth of slides and kind of, exercises and whatever. Went into this classroom, year 10, 11 kids, 15 years old or whatever. And because I've used this question with branding companies, with organizations, so if you had a big organization, well, there you go, Hannah, I'm going to test it with you. So what one word would you use to describe VMG?
That's a good question. Am I only allowed one?
Yes. Absolutely one.
That
word.
I would go for growth, because
Brilliant.
that covers a lot of what we do.
Okay, brilliant. Love it. So basically what we used to do, as a brand consultant, you go out to the organization, you go out to employees and stakeholders, whether that's customers, suppliers, whoever that is, competitors, and you would get them to do this exercise, really simple exercise. And basically what you'd analyze all the data and you go, well, okay, so if VMG stood for being proud and all the rest of it, and if the stakeholder and the customers and the employees word comes back different to that, why is there a kind of mismatch with those two perceptions of the reality of that particular organization? Now, that is a brilliant little exercise, it really is. And one particular huge international company, they basically came back with their collective word as kind of the board and said, we're proud. Basically, when we went to the employees and everybody else, they came back with arrogant.
Oh.
Now, what do you think we needed to fix? Absolutely. So the perception, they wanted to be proud, but actually the reality was that people found that they were arrogant. So basically what we then did is communication programs to fix that. And we did. And that's how it works. So basically I took this literal simple little exercise into the classroom and I asked, 20, 30 kids, exactly this one question, just because I was curious, like the word you used earlier. What was really super, super interesting is the first lad who I asked literally was sat literally to my right. And I said to him, give us your word. And he said to me, weirdo. Now, I thought, being creative and whatever, I thought, what a brilliant word. And I said to him, I love that word. And he said, no, he said, Sid, I'm bullied. I don't fit in at school. Don't get the whole essence of learning and everything else. So I said to him, okay, well, let's just park that thought for the moment. Went around the rest of the class, about 15 to 20% said freak, abnormal, misfit. I mean, literally a real negative landscape of kind of words. And the other words that the other 80% of the young people in the room said weren't necessarily that sort of positive. So that in that session really got me thinking. And I thought, well, there's no point me talking to them about the wonderful world of branding, the wonderful world of kind of Elon Musk and all these people, if the perception of the world and themselves is exactly that. So in that session, we did some very quick little exercises. Some of them we're going to touch on today and in this Microburst series. And literally by the end of that session, we all agreed that we all weirdos, freaks and misfits, and what a wonderful world it is. And once we understand ourselves better and how we can add that magic and value to the world, then our worlds improve. And literally that's why I asked this one question. It is that whole thing about how do I perceive myself? How am I carrying myself forward? And if you take brilliant people like Martin Seligman, who created this whole landscape of kind of positive psychology, what we think is how we behave. It really is. Our behaviors and the life that we lead is a direct manifestation of all of that internal dialogue. Anyway, from that one session, literally, I did loads of research into all the kind of social stuff that we don't want to see, suicide rate, self-harm rate, obesity, all that kind of stuff, and realized that actually underlying all of the kind of the great news headlines about business being booming and all the rest of it, actually there's almost like a sub feeling of feeling less than in the kind of modern developed Western world. So basically did loads of research, then started to come up with some exercises and some kind of, some workshops or whatever, went into universities, went into colleges, went into schools, went into preschool, went into what they call pupil referral units, which is where kids have been excluded from school. We went into mainstream businesses and basically just started testing these tools. Then started doing lots of work with the Department of Work and Pensions with people who've been unemployed. Now, some of these people have been unemployed for like 20, 30 years. And in some, they literally had 5 or 6 generations where no one had ever worked. So we started building these tools, literally for various programs through me, and then just watched people change within days, within hours of that whole internal kind of script. And that's why this little exercise is so important. Now, in terms of some of the businesses that we've worked with, I mean, we've worked with some amazing organizations. I mean, we really, really do. And it's not, this isn't us kind of banging our own drum, but literally from the age of 3 or 4 years old, all the way into people who are retired and everything in between. We've worked in mainstream prisons. We worked in Europe's biggest prison to see if we can shift that perception of reality. Now, the reason why this is of interest to me, and this is why we've got these microburst sessions, is that I used to hate learning. I hated it at school, really did. I got through my O levels, I got through my A levels, I got a degree or whatever, but I hated learning and I hated reading, I really did. Now, a number of years ago, a friend of mine said, because she was coaching me and I said, I'm a bit stuck in life. And this was, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago, whatever. And she said, why don't you read this book, which is the one top left, Professor Anthony Graining, The Meaning of Things, a brilliant book. And literally arrived in the post secondhand through Amazon. And I kind of, reluctantly started reading it and then just was encaptured by this entire book. Brilliant, brilliant book. And then that started me in this whole journey of kind of discovery. And at the same sort of time was kind of discovering all the me stuff. So basically the reason why I put these books on this screen is these are some of the books that we read, some of the books that we analyze, some of them that we codify. And these have been the backdrop to what we do at the Me program. They really, really are. A number of years ago, I wrote 3 books, Me in a Minute. And the reason why I wrote these books is because we kind of think of change as being this lifelong journey of real kind of uphill struggle. And it's really not. I mean, I always used to find that many of the self-help books, Scott Peck and the like, were basically tons and tons of pages that you'd have to get all the way to get to the end, to get to the good stuff. So when I was writing these books, I wanted them to be short little bursts of little bright little kind of thoughts and energy that you could digest within a minute, hence 60 ways to improve your life in 60 seconds. I'm dyslexic as well, so I find kind of writing and reading quite hard. So literally I wrote the first one, which is the dark colored one. The magenta one is basically, so the first one is all about you and your world. The second one is about you and the world of work. And the third one is about you and the world of family and kind of community. And that's why it's the whole kind of, Me in a Minute series. And it's not, hey, I've not put them up on screen, to sell them to you, but they are just a wonderful little way of reminding ourselves. And we had an email the other day from a young lady who was unemployed a few years ago, which actually was last year. She came on one of our courses and I mean, she had trouble background and all the rest of it. She said, I still carry that book with me. It still helps me almost on a daily basis, really think about how I can really keep thinking and kind of progressing and moving on. None of us is born unhappy. I mean, there isn't. I mean, we're only born with 2 fears, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's it. The rest of them we learn. I mean, we really, really do. We are all wonderfully adaptable. We're wonderfully creative. We are naturally social beings. That's why we've evolved in the human being state that we have. And sometimes all we need is that little nudge, that little shift in perspective to fall back in love with our own magic. And the thing is, if you think about kids, and I'm a single dad of 3, 4 children, but 3 of them are quite young, so 6, 4, and 2. And the thing that they've made me realize is that when you're young, 4, 6, whatever that is, we see the world in a magical way. We do. We see the creativity. We see that curiosity. We see that love. And as we get older, and I'm going to talk more about this in the other microburst kind of sessions, we lose that wonderful passion and that magic and that curiosity because we get weighed down by processes and procedures and all of the stuff that kind of slows that wonderful magical curiosity down. And the reason why this session is called Organizations Don't Change, People Do, is because they don't. Organizations can't change. And I've worked with some of the biggest in the world. And they are just, I mean, people kind of boards and managers think, oh, we can change the organization. You cannot. You have to go down to literally every single person and help them want that change if that's what they want to do. And that's why this statement on the screen here is just so important. None of what you'll hear from me, the organization that I started and I belong to, is more powerful than what you tell yourself. It's impossible. You can read the greatest book. You can watch the most fantastic film, but it's what you take away. It's those notes that you write. It's that mental script that you're rewriting or you're writing is the most important thing to you. And this is also important too. Even if you're a practice owner or you're a practitioner or you're an employee, None of what you'll hear from any organization, however big, is more important than what you tell yourself. Trust me, it isn't. And I've obviously worked with, some really big organizations. And the thing that ultimately we always ask this question. So when somebody comes up with a whole bunch of new values or whatever that is, ultimately we say, well, what does that mean to me? Really, really important to take that. And I love this. CPD, we know, don't we? Continuous professional development, fantastic. Well, in actual fact, we see it differently. We see it as CPD3. And there is a reason for this, I promise, Hannah. So the first thing is about personals, continued personal development. Super, super important. The second one is continuous professional development. But the third one, and that's obviously why there are two, there's a C and an S in practice, not only the practice of practicing of self-development, but actually the practice of practicing that within your own practice. It's so important. And when I look at the profile, if you read people's books like, Jim Collins' Good to Great, those companies that excel, those companies that don't see recessions, are the ones that keep practicing all this kind of good stuff. And that's why, again, as I put here, it's the practice of practice. It really is so, so important. So here we go. Quick question. What's your biggest challenge? Chat box, please. I always call it chat bot. It's not. It's chat box. Chat box, please. Resilient, great word there. Motivated, wonderful, supportive. Love those. So what's your biggest challenge you face right now? Anyone? Hannah, what's yours? I keep throwing this to you.
Oh, at the moment, my time management is.
Oh, Ruth's in agreement with that time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably going to be quite a common one.
And what's really interested in working with VMG, and obviously we've read a number of the surveys that you've conducted and other stuff that's out there. Look at this time there as well. Motivation, Stuart, brilliant. Well, I keep listening, Stuart, seriously, because there's some stuff in here hopefully you're going to take away that's going to be really, really helpful. So we've obviously, we've listened, we've looked at a lot of the research that you've done, brilliant stuff. These are some of the things that people are kind of facing within the veterinary industry. Poor leadership, demotivated team, demotivated self. As you went there, Stuart, it's about kind of motivation, staff and skills shortages, workload, communication, customer expectations, technology and rising costs. None of this is new to any particular sector. We work in lots of different sectors. This is all fairly common, it really is. But the question is, what do we do about it? It really is. And this, I love this, and that's why there's a thing there called settings. We are a mirror of our environment, whether that's our professional environment, our home environment, our social environment, our spiritual environment, whatever that is. We are a mirror to all those things. So I'm going to get to the good stuff. So I'm going to go for 3 things that I'd like you to take away. Okay, here we go. The first thing is that words matter. They really, really do. Now, there was a piece of research done in the 1980s by 2 incredibly clever people. And it was about the language that we use on an everyday basis. And what they did this research with children. So they basically profiled different 3 socioeconomic kind of family groups, right? Lower income, middle income, and kind of higher income. And they basically observed, wrote down, noted all the words that were being used within those environments. What they found between lower income and higher income families, there was a 30 million word gap. So there were 30 million more words spoken in higher education, you might call it more intellectual kind of, environments and homes, than there was in kind of lower. Now, what's really interesting about that is this, the way that we talk to each other and ourselves. So we think about that self-script, it has a hugely profound effect on how we acquire intellectual skills. They call it the Pygmalion effect. How we behave, how we feel, how we connect with things, how we connect with ourselves, how we learn, and ultimately how we live. So I really urge you to really think about that whole script, that language that you're learning. And even if you've got family, and as I said, I've got 3 very young children who teach me a huge amount about myself, really think about the language you're using, both for them, but also for you. We do learn optimism, as Martin Seligman so brilliantly put, but we also learn pessimism too. And because you're in the business of care, placebo means I will heal, nocebo means I will harm. Do our words have effect on our care and our healing? Absolutely. So really think about that. Your words have the ability to heal, but also have the ability to wound. And there's lots of research, about this. And if you would like some, just let us know. The second thing that I'd like you to take away is you matter. Regardless of where you are in life, regardless of where your position is, you matter. And one of the great kind of Delphic maxims was, Socrates told us to know thyself. I love this, honestly. And the thing is, it's by knowing what you don't know. So the more we discover, the more we dig into the treasure that is in all of us and each other, the more we discover about ourselves, for right and for wrong, for good and for bad. It really makes a big difference. And the thing is, regardless of leadership, wherever you are within your organization or whatever, you cannot lead yourself without actively learning. And that's why it's really, really important that true wisdom is knowing what you do not know. So by discovering more about yourself, that's why going on courses like this or reading books or whatever, that's where the good stuff is. Now, we do a values exercise, both personally and professional people. It has got one of the most profound effects on any organization. And I was talking to a practice owner who owns a lot of practices yesterday, and he said that the biggest differential between success and failure is in the values that they've got personally, but they've also got collectively as an organization. So really think about your values. Super, super important. And also when it comes to kind of learning about ourselves, I love this word. Write this word down. I write this word down a lot. Courage. And courage comes from the derivative of Latin, which is cur, which means heart. And courage, all courage means is stories told from the heart. So when somebody says, I don't have the courage, it's not in my heart to do this, find the courage that is in your heart. So find the courage to learn. And that's something that VMG are fantastic at. The courage to learn, to accept change, and to recognize that no one is the finished article. None of us are. Absolutely none of us are. They really, really are. Now, this last one, and I'm conscious I've only got 7 minutes left, but that we all matter. We truly do, regardless of where we are in life. And as I said, we go into prisons, we go into pupil referral units. We're in every ward of life, that every single person matters. And I would love you to ask yourself this question. What business are we in? Truly, what business are we in? Yes, there's a practice side to it in terms of a process, but actually you and we are in the business to care. We really, really are. And don't forget, and again, write those 4 letters down. You've got to care for yourself. Absolutely. And that's the whole thing, isn't it? The oxygen mask in the plane, all that kind of stuff. Care for yourself, care for your colleagues, care for your customers, and care for the community. Really, really important. And again, I mentioned leadership just now, but leadership is a skill and it's completely up to you to develop it. Nobody is born a great leader. Absolutely not. I mean, when you look at people like Jim Collins, you look at all of those people, they had to learn that leadership. It's a kind of failure and success route to go. And again, I love this first question, what if? What if we all knew each other better? What if I knew Hannah's values? What if I knew Paula's values? What if I knew everybody's values in the world? You know what? It's amazing how better organizations perform and they feel by knowing all of that kind of good stuff. And as I said at the beginning, organizations don't change, people do. So once we get to know each other and ourselves better, we become better people, we become more understanding, we become more cooperative, we become more connected, all of those great things. And when we look at our environments, it's about that top thing. And, Maslow talked about this, didn't he? The kind of basic hierarchy of needs. It's around safety. I want to feel safe. I want an organization where I feel safe in order for me to show up and be authentic and be curious and be all those wonderful things that we are as human beings. So think about that physical side to safety, the psychological side, the emotional side, and the spiritual side. And that's why, within vet practices, these 4 things are so, so important that people don't consider. They don't look at the spiritual side. They don't look at the emotional side. It's super, super important. And that's why we all want to belong. We all want that sense of kind of belonging. We really, really do. Now, I was reminded of this morning. So I was getting my children ready for school, and Beatrice went away and she did a picture. And this is the picture that she did. Now, she's 4 years old. And on there, she basically has a love heart there. And then on the right-hand side is a smiley face, because I sign everything up with a smiley face and a kiss. And the words, because you can't necessarily write above it, are her way of saying, I love you. Now, I've kept that. And I thought, actually, that's a huge reminder that it is my responsibility as a father and as a community member to bring up my children with the love and the safety and all the rest of the things that I talk about. Now, if you want to watch a brilliant TED Talk, Shonda Rhimes, literally my year of saying yes to everything. Watch it. It's 15 minutes of magical gold. You'll love it. And we'll send you links to all this kind of stuff as well. And this is one thing that she said at the end, which I love. It's had a magical effect on me. And basically, she just had to say yes to everything. Even if her kid said to her, Mummy, let's play. And even if she was running out the door to do something, she had to say yes. So don't forget the practice of practice is really important. We have a wonderful little booklet that you can download. Take a screen grab, literally capture that QR code right now, and you can grab that little booklet of magical stories about magical people like you doing magical things in everyday magical environments. There we go. So Hannah, I don't want to show the film at the end because I'm very conscious we've only got a few more minutes left.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much, Sid. Honestly, you saying about keeping a notebook. Look, there's me scribbling down all sorts of little things. I completely hadn't made the connection about the word courage and where like the etymology of the word comes from cur.
Beautiful.
That just made my brain go, oh, kind of thing. I hadn't thought about that. And
when organizations talk about purpose and belonging, it's about having the courage to, share those stories and to move forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's something that we talk about in our leadership courses when we talk about, right, what are the fundamental values of your organization? Have you ever actually explored those? Do you express those? And what does that look like actually enacted in the way you do things, in whether that's in your role, your team, your practice, whatever that might look like.
Everything we do, it's all based on value.
Right. That's really interesting. And I also love, obviously, I'm an educationalist at heart. You cannot lead without actively learning. I think I'm going to stick that on a mug somewhere because I would absolutely agree.
And it's what Rihanna's put down here: sustaining motivation to continue my career. Curiosity. We all get bogged down. Absolutely, we all get bogged down in the process. But don't forget, and I'll touch on more of it in the next sessions as well. How do you keep that curiosity going? And I'm going to ask you a really crazy question. So how many times does a 4-year-old smile in a day? We'll answer all of that stuff in the next session. But how do you keep that good stuff going is so important. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really nice kind of trailer for the next session, because we're going to be running these microburst sessions last Wednesday of every month, leading up to VMG Congress in June. So I'm just going to pop the information up there that VMG Congress will be on the 8th and 9th of June this year. Sid is one of our speakers, and he'll be running a workshop in our stream on finding your purpose, which is, as you can see, one of Sid's big passions. So we're really looking forward to that if you can join us in person. But up until that point, we will have sessions. These little microburst sessions, just half an hour. Bring your lunch, bring a notebook. So the next one will be Wednesday, the 22nd of February, again from 1 till 1:30 p.m. We would absolutely love for you to join us there. So for now, just like to say thank you very much to Sid for joining us, for sparking some thoughts in a little microburst session, and we will see you again next month.
And if you've got any questions, email them in before and we'll answer in the next session.
Please do. Just get in touch. That would be lovely. All right. Thanks ever so much, Sid. And thanks everybody. We'll see you again soon.